and welcome to another video. Today I want to share my story of how I found serenity. And this video is for you especially if you feel anxious and tensed a lot, if you are obsessed with productivity and over planning everything, and you feel like you can never really rest. So I want to start, as always, by sharing how this journey started for me. So I've been anxious and restless for most of my life. I feel like it started when we moved to the big city. I grew up in a little village to the south of Hamburg, and that was it has like one traffic light, and the big forest was basically across the street. So from moving from that into one of the biggest cities of Germany was a lot on my nervous system as a highly sensitive child. I was 5 years old. And it got worse when I started school, especially then in high school, socially, to a point where I got diagnosed with sociophobia. And then also after graduating high school, because I didn't really have a plan for my life. And I was just stressed about figuring out how to exist. And then it peaked during my art school studies. And on top of that, I was always focused on to-dos and like trying to move forward over planning, just spending so much time in my head, obsessing over past and future, not really being able to rest and to fall asleep at night easily because my head was so loud. And the way that I coped with this was escaping and numbing myself through distraction. So I was, leaning deep into my creative projects like drawing or playing The Sims 2, watching something like animes or a Netflix series, but not just watching, but like binging. Or daydreaming, escaping into my own imaginary world. And also food was a lot of times my way of dealing with anxiety and stress. And then I would call that nervous system regulation when it mainly, calmed me on the surface but didn't really cure the root problem. And then a few months ago, at the end of July, a month after I had my choice realization, where everything was fine, my life was good, I was then also doing whatever I wanted, there was still this restlessness and like this tension, and I wanted to release that. And at the time, I was reading The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, which is mainly about being present and witnessing the mind and unidentifying from it. And it made me realize how much time I spend in my head, and that I'm basically a slave to it. Always chasing to-dos. At some point, like a few years ago, I had like this journal that was my to-do list because I had so many things that I wanted to do. And the list kept growing and growing, and I felt like I would never really move forward. And I was just so overwhelmed with tasks and to-dos. But also about the past, like I was reflecting a lot and like revisiting a lot of my traumas, and the book made me realize that this is not really helpful if you do it over and over again. And then I also noticed that I'm still rushing a lot while I eat. And the thing with eating is you don't really, like, you have to sit down and you have to, take care of your body. Um, and because the mind is like not distracted enough, I used to then use this to plan, but also rush the eating so I could then take action after. And I noticed that this is exactly how I used to play The Sims, especially The Sims 2 Castaway, because it's not so easy to cheat in that game. I would get so annoyed if the Sims would have to sleep or to eat, because then I couldn't move forward with the projects. In the Castaway game, you have to build huts and you have to, find resources. And I was like, whoa, this is how I'm treating myself. I'm like so obsessed with getting things done. And while I was reading the book, I was like, okay, I need to change that. So I set the intention and I sat down and ate as slowly as I could, chewed as much as I could, and just tried to be as present as possible with this practice of eating. And in that moment, everything changed and time slowed down, and I was like, whoa, my life feels so different right now. And I feel like in that moment, I was able to embody all of the things that I've had read in the book so far. But, being present with the body and with the activity is one thing, but still the mind sometimes checks in and more thoughts are coming through. And then I was like, how can I stop that? Like, how can I switch off the mind? And then on the same day, I read chapter 6 of the book, which is about the inner body. And it taught me that there are other planes of existence and that I don't have to be up here all the time, but that I can shift my awareness into my light body, as I like to call it. I think he just calls it the inner body. And just exist down here, and you can still witness what's happening up there, but you don't have to be up there and engage with all of the thoughts. Oof, and that was so huge, because I was like, wow, I just asked for, something, that a place that I could go to, or, a solution for this problem. And then the chapter I read was exactly about this. And that, again, changed so many things. The weeks after that, wow, I was so present and so chill and serene. I mostly meditated, but not how I used to meditate, which was laying down and then reflecting and thinking and planning very, concentrated. I was just existing in hyperspace. I was just being, and that felt so good. And also what I realized is, if you quiet the mind and just stay in the light body, more visions and intuitive wisdom comes through, because the mind often overshadows that. And I I used to be so confused about what is an intuitive impulse and what is my anxiety, like what are anxious thoughts. And during that time, I was like, everything was so clear to me. Yeah, that was really beautiful. Plus, I felt like I had found the ultimate key to all of my problems. because 80% of my self-growth goals were accomplished within that one day, within that one moment. And I was like, I can just take all of this off because the key to all of that is just being present. And holy moly. And I was working on some of these goals for years and never really made big progress on them. And then everything changed just with this one realization. That was so interesting. Yeah, and I showed up differently to life. And it's so funny because the first time I spent time with my mom after that shift, she was like, did you do something to your skin, or I don't know, your eyes, they look clearer. What happened to you? It was so interesting to receive this reflection that the quantum jump was also visible on the outside. And I truly felt like I had gone through some kind of rebirth. I have to say that I'm not in this state all the time anymore because I was focused a little bit too much on the 3D then, and yeah, I had some setbacks, but just knowing that this is possible and that I unlocked this state of being at some point in my life, yeah, makes me so faithful, and I know that I can always return to that if I just set the intention and put in the work. Yes. I also wanted to talk about non-reactivity because that's also something the book taught me. So at first it confused me a little bit because I was like, wait, isn't this bypassing? But it's not. So if there is an emotion arising, there is a gap between the emotion and taking action. And for most people, it works as like a domino effect. So it's like emotion, reaction. But it doesn't have to be like this. And this gap in between is presence. And you can stretch and expand that gap through practice. And then when the emotion arises, you can turn within and you can feel it, validate it, and then slowly watch it fall again. And then your actions and your words are not emotionally charged with that emotion. I'm talking about like negative emotions. Of course, it's like okay to charge your words and actions with love and gratitude. It's about, being triggered. And sometimes, or very often actually, you have to put in some work to let the emotion fall again. And what I like to do is sitting down with it, like literally sitting down, and then I talk myself through it. So I literally talk to myself and I'm like, okay, why is this happening? What was the trigger? Is it connected to a trauma or maybe a past wound? And then I also like to visualize a past version of myself, and then I talk to her and I comfort her, maybe I hug her, until this emotion is alchemized. I call these alchemy sessions because I'm, alchemizing the negative emotion. And yeah, that's so powerful, and also made me realize that this is true nervous system regulation, or how to calm your nervous system. And it doesn't require anything external, it just requires presence. And I used to rely on all of these external things that were only numbing me to regulate my nervous system. And then I was like, whoa, this is so easy. I don't need anything. I can just, sit with it and put in the work and be present. Because there's so much power in the present moment. Yes. And I think this brings me to the end of this video. So I just wanted to recommend the book again, but also mention that for me, this book was the last step to this milestone in my journey. And it might not be your last step to the milestone, but I'm pretty certain that it will be a big step towards the milestone, especially if this video resonated with you. And yeah, if you're curious about my choice realization, then you can watch my choice video and also the transmission that I uploaded for that topic. Thank you so much for watching. May this find you in aligned timing on your journey, and may you remember that serenity doesn't require anything external. Bye bye.